Howdy folks, how's it going? Gabriel here. Greetings from Shela, Guatemala, where I've been hanging out the past few days. I've been traveling for 2 months around Mexico, Belize, and Guatemala, so feel free to subscribe to my channel here to follow my upcoming adventures wherever they take me. Alright, so in this video then I'm going to talk about how to book hotel rooms while you're traveling. Now this video is mainly geared towards people who are booking their hotel rooms as they go along, as opposed to booking everything in advance. That is one way to do it, of course, especially if you're only going to be traveling for a week or two or so. Then you probably want to have everything set and know that you got a place and know what you're going to be paying and everything. In which case I would pretty much recommend using the internet and maybe a guidebook if you get one. But while you're traveling, there are an assortment of different ways to book your hotel rooms. So I've come up with 6 different ways to book hotel rooms. So tip number 1 here is to use the internet. That is really the most practical, useful way to book rooms. It's incredibly convenient. You can do it a week in advance, the day before, the same day that you arrive somewhere. You can look at lots of different options, from the comfort of your computer, wherever you're sitting, and see photos of the rooms, read reviews of the different hotels or hostels, check prices, of course. So I've made use of various websites such as hostelworld.com, hostels.com, booking.com. So even the hostel websites such as Hostel World, you can find private rooms, because lots of hostels, such as the one that I'm staying at here in Shela, where I'm paying $6 for a dorm bed, they also have private rooms that are only $10. So making use of the hostel websites is a good way to go, even if you want to get a private room. And then you can find the cheaper option. Whereas booking.com, for example, has more of a range of hotels to hostels. Generally there are more different accommodation options available on booking.com, but it doesn't necessarily have as many of the hostels. Option number 2 is to make use of your guidebook. Assuming that you have a guidebook, you don't have to get one, but I recommend getting a guidebook. It is a good way to read about the different parts of the country. You can even find out about the less known, less touristy places by making use of a guidebook, because guidebooks such as Lonely Planet, Rough Guide, etc., that are geared more towards budget travelers, backpacker travelers, who are not necessarily just looking to go to the resorts on the beach or whatever, will include a wide range of different places to see in that country, including some of the less known places. So a guidebook can actually be a good way to find the less touristy places to visit that are actually worth visiting, as opposed to just wandering randomly around the country, which is perfectly valid as well, but there are places that are nicer to visit than other places, and being able to read about them beforehand in a guidebook is quite useful. So a guidebook is a good way to find out about hotels. You don't have the same large array of information that you get from online. So most guidebooks are just going to have a quick list of half a dozen or whatever accommodation options and a very short few sentences encapsulating that particular hostel or hotel. So it's not quite as comprehensive as making use of the internet, but it's still a valid way to go, especially if you haven't booked something beforehand. You're coming into a city, and then you can ask the taxi driver or whatever, take you to this place, and then look at it in person. And if it doesn't work, then start walking around and checking places out, which comes to the third option, which is just show up in that town and just start walking around and check things out in person, see what has availability, see which rooms they have available. Maybe their website shows their nicest room, but then they have their crappiest room available. This certainly depends on like how big of a place you're arriving at. You probably don't want to show up in Mexico City, for example, with nothing booked and start walking around checking out hotels, especially if you're arriving on a flight late at night. Then you definitely want to have something booked in advance. But for example, when I've traveled around India, I almost never booked anything in advance. I would just show up at a place, walk around and check things out. I've been to India 6 times, and so I had a better idea of what to expect and where I was going, and was going to places I'd been to before, etc. But that is certainly one way to find hotels. So option number 4 here is word of mouth. You meet fellow travelers while you're traveling, especially if you're staying in hostels and you're staying in dorm rooms, and you tend to talk with people. And so they'll mention, yeah, I just came from such and such place, and you're like, oh, that's where I'm going. Okay, can you recommend a hotel or hostel there? And so have a notebook or something and jot down these suggestions. Even if you're in Mexico and you're talking to somebody who found a great place in Guatemala, but you're planning to go there at some point or thinking about it, then jot down in a notebook the different places that people recommend, and that can come in handy. Tip number 5 here is keep your eyes open for posters at wherever you're staying that are recommending another place. So I did this several times in Guatemala and found really awesome places. So for example, I was in central Guatemala at Semuchampi in the jungle of Guatemala, a really awesome spot, and they had a poster there for a cheap hostel in Antigua in southern Guatemala, where I was going next. And so I was able to book that place by telephone from the lady at the desk where I was staying at that place in the jungle of Guatemala at Semuchampi. And then when I got to the hotel in Antigua, and I noticed that they had a poster for the place that I'd been at Semuchampi, where I booked that hotel. So just keep your eyes open, then you'll probably see a big colorful poster and a description and hopefully costs, etc. But you can at least call ahead and talk to somebody there, find out what's available, how much it costs, and then make your booking so that you have that booked. So the last suggestion here is to ask local people, such as a taxi driver or a bus driver, where a good place is. Maybe not necessarily like a bus driver on a local bus, but I asked somebody once on a shuttle, a minivan that was transporting foreign travelers. And so then you're going to have a little more interaction with the driver. And so you can just ask them if they're driving to that place. They might know about hotels there. And so I got a great recommendation on Flores in northern Guatemala, which is near the Mayan ruins of Tikal. I got a awesome room there for $10, a private room there. I also asked a taxi driver in Chetumal, Mexico, and he also referred me to a nice little cheap hotel with a private room for about $20. So there you go. Those are 6 different options for booking hotel rooms while you travel. All right, hope that helps. Thanks for watching. Happy trips. Hasta luego.